Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being out here tonight, or today, actually. Sorry. My name is Tina Gonzalez. I'm the co-minister of defense for the IPOP, the Indigenous Peoples Liberation Party. Compañeras, today pundits from left and right are scrambling to find a solution to the environmental devastation created by capitalism. The Indigenous Peoples Liberation Party has one solution: honor all land treaties made with the indigenous people of this continent. We say that treaties are more than historical artifacts. We say that it's an agreement made between their ancestors and our ancestors. We say that at the beginning of the environmental crisis, when these agreements were broken, as indigenous people, we understand that more is needed than just an alternative energy sources. We need to create a society in which human beings see ourselves as equal members of our ecosystem, equal to the land, equal to the air, and equal to the water. But in order to create such a society, we must smash any system that views Mother Earth as a simply commodity to harvest and exploit for short-term profit. In a sign of solidarity, I want everybody to put their fists in the air. When I say whose land, I want everybody here to say native land. Whose land? Whose land? Whose land? The Indigenous Peoples Liberation Party says that indigenous wars never ended. We have been fighting for over 500 years, and we will continue to fight until every last system of oppression, every last system of colonization, and every last predatory capitalist has been pushed off our land. Hasta la victoria siempre.
Thanks, Tina. Hey, Gary. So next up is Gary Stewart. He works with an organization called System Change, Not Climate Change, confronting the root causes of climate change.
Thank you, brother. Thank all of you for being here. Again, I'm Gary Stewart. I'm on the Transitional Steering Committee for System Change and Climate Change, the North American Coalition, which is an eco-socialist coalition. And also I'm the organizer, or one of the organizers, for System Change and Climate Change Dallas-Fort Worth. Basically, we're not afraid to use the C word, capitalism. And that is what the struggle is either capitalism or death. Well, capitalism, death, or a livable future. And we're not willing to put up with this anymore. We're not. The time is running out for us. More and more, as the IPCC comes out more with its studies, it's more serious than they thought. It's happening more rapidly than they thought it would. Climate change, climate disruption, climate chaos. And we're already feeling the effects of it across the globe and here in Texas. I mean, do you feel it? Do you see it? And do you think your politicians gives a you-know-what about it? What? Hell no, they do not care. You think, or we have thought, and I did too, that our government is our government. But you know what? It's not, and it's never been our government. It's always been the government for the elite, for the moneyed, for the wealthy, for the business community, for the banking community, for the fossil fuel industry. Not for us. They are utterly bankrupt from local to state to national and international. Guess who's with the United Nations, or who will be in the United Nations discussion on climate tomorrow? Yes. Big oil, big gas. The fossil fuel industry will be in those talks as though they have a right that supersedes the needs of the planet and of you and of your children and of your future. Do you accept that? What? Hell no, yes. And so basically, without going on too far longer, our goal with System Change and Climate Change is to challenge capitalism, or the control of policy by capital. That business people, financial markets, oil companies, gas companies, coal companies make decisions that affect you locally, not just in Washington, D.C., that's bad enough, but also here in Dallas and Fort Worth, you have been feeling the effects from the Barnett Shale, have you not? People are getting sick. People will be dying, and they don't care. And we're close to the Texas Railroad Commission, right? That is the true seat of government, because they call the shots. They pull the strings. And are you going to accept it? What? Hell no. You fight it. And so that's what we're trying to do, to bring together communities that have been oppressed by environmental injustice and economic injustice, because the two are inseparable. And so tomorrow at Dallas City Hall, within City Hall itself, in the flag room on the 6th floor at 10 o'clock, System Change, Not Climate Change, Dallas-Fort Worth will be having a press conference and rally to shake the walls of City Hall and to say, no more. No more lying about climate change. No more denial about climate change. No more ignoring climate change. And no more policies that affect negatively the majority of the people at the service of profit for developers, bankers, Wall Street, and the oil and gas industry. So if you're free tomorrow, come with us. It's going to be a historic moment, and we're going to scare the shit out of City Hall.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, we're sitting right next to the Texas Railroad Commission, and the current candidate for the Texas Railroad Commission has received over a third of his financial contributions from the oil and gas industry. And guess what? He's the one passing out permits to these industries that are fracking us left and right. So next, we're going to have Mark Green. Where are you at? He's running for Congress.
Thank you all for letting me come out and join you today. It's not often that I'm the moderate in the room, but I probably am here and thrilled to be with you. The reason that my campaign colors are blue and green and white are self-explanatory. They go with the environmental movement. And I am very much a supporter of renewable energy, in particular of responsible energy production, which is not going on right now in the Barnett Shale. I don't know how many of you are aware that a technology already exists that they can perform their fracking operations with recycled fluids and utilize much less of our fresh water, and they can do it at a lower cost than they're doing right now to take our water and dump it down a hole where it's gone out of the hydrological cycle forever. But that's true. These people are not concerned with anything but their immediate short-term profits, and they're going to have us all pay the long-term price for their practices. I am not dead set against fracking, as I'm sure most of you are. I think it possibly can be done in an environmentally responsible manner. It's clearly not being done so now. And I think that a moratorium would be in order until they can prove that they can. I believe that they can. I'm a big fan of renewable energy and of wind power and of solar power and distributed generation and conservation. We have to do all of these things. We cannot, unfortunately, stop burning stuff for power tomorrow, as much as I wish we could, but we can move in that direction as rapidly as possible if you have leadership in Washington that is focused on that, which right now you do not. I'm running against a woman who has been in office for 18 years. I don't think that she knows that we have a water issue. There's a report out in today's paper where the drought conditions in our area and across the United States are approaching those that existed in 1957, before I was born. Okay, in 1957, before I was born, we had less than a third of the population that we have now in this area. This is a very, very serious issue. It's not happenstance, and the woman who I'm seeking to replace, she's not aware of it. I don't think she knows that there are earthquakes going on up in the Azle area. I don't think that she knows that we have environmental problems being caused by the lack of green completion of wells. I don't think she cares, and I don't think the folks that are up here with her care either. I have children. They're going to have children. You will have children, and it is our job to leave the environment as nearly as good, hopefully better than we found it. And there's nobody in Washington focused on that. So I'm going to be asking for your support between now and the election, which is 43 days away, believe it or not. I will not be your perfect environmental representative, I'm telling you now, but I'll be much better than you have available anywhere else. And there's only one person that can replace Kay Granger right now, and that is me. And I will be responsive to you, I will listen to you, and I will do my best to push things in a positive direction as rapidly as we possibly can. You guys are doing great work out here. We need to march on the Railroad Commission for sure. I have been in their hearings. I have testified at their hearings, and they're not hearing you and me. Okay, Chesapeake, the people that are that are executing the irresponsible fracking, okay, they are culprits in the environmental predation that is going on right now in pursuit of profit. And they're trying to take the energy that they produce, the American energy that they produce from underground, and liquefy it and ship it overseas so they can produce more, generate more profits, and leave us energy deprived. Okay, this is unacceptable, and we have to make certain that the energy that we need to transition from the fossil fuel economy that we're in now to the hydrogen economy that we'll probably be in when all this is said and done is here for us to utilize, and that is produced responsibly. So thank you guys very much for letting me join you. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the good fight. We shall overcome.
So next up is Cindy Spoon, and she's an organizer with the tar sands blockade, realizing direct action right here in Texas.
Great. Thanks, John. So my name's Cindy Spoon. I worked with the tar sands blockade. We ran a direct action campaign against the Keystone XL pipeline. And now I live back in Denton, and we are fighting the fracking and trying to be the first city that bans fracking in Texas, outright bans. And it's a very uphill fight. So I'm going to read some things that I wrote. Okay. Naomi Klein, I'm going to start with Naomi Klein. Author Naomi Klein has been in the news a lot lately saying that climate change changes everything. Climate scientists don't know exactly what to expect. It changes everything about our physical world. As climate chaos approaches, as scientists warn us, still the drive for extreme energy extraction is continuing. We're blowing up mountains to get to coal. We're fracking everything. We're mining for newer, extremer forms of energy like the tar sands, strip mining. The environmental movement wants to celebrate victories over the decline of coal burning in this country, but industry is now just exporting that shit to other countries. They're still trying to make a buck. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. It's not. Like our fight against the Keystone XL pipeline in Texas and Oklahoma, the only people that are willing to try to stop this are the activists that are on the ground identifying pinch points and blockading the trains, blockading the coal trains, and blockading the coal exports. Today, as most of y'all know, on Wall Street, thousands of people have successfully shut down the offices of the people that are bankrolling this climate chaos. Yeah, fuck yeah. So, I want to reflect on that. We have the power to do that. We can do that. Even if it's just for one day, even if it's just today, we can actually shut this shit down. That exists. That's happening right now. So, I want you to remember that, and I hope that that knowledge, can fuel you, and that you'll ask yourself what you're willing to do. What are you willing to do? I didn't ask that. What are you willing to do? The change we need will never come from above. Our mass movements will have to demand it. We cannot wait for our government and industry to fix itself. There's already such disgustingly gross wealth inequality in this country. It's clear that these corporate banksters and these oil and gas holes value profit more than our lives. Our politicians are in their pockets. We'll never get the change we need by appealing to the moral sense of those that are oppressing us. So yeah, I support shutting this shit down. Woo! But it's not all I support. We have to rebuild this world also. We have to shut down these toxic industries that turn ourselves and our planet into commodities so that something new can grow in their place. We have to be brave enough to allow ourselves to imagine what we do want to see in this system's place. That's hard. We have to respect ourselves enough to demand better. We have to have enough dignity to accept nothing less. We want breathable air. We want drinkable water. We want food that is not full of pesticides and toxic. All right, I'm going to put this away and just talk for a second too. So Marius Mason is a trans man that is in a federal prison in Fort Worth, pretty close to where we are. They're serving out 22 years in solitary confinement for acts of sabotage that they took for Earth defense. Fuck yeah, Marius Mason, hell yeah. This really breaks my heart. Being in Fort Worth right now, being in Texas, we're surrounded by the real climate criminals. And we know these people will never see a day in jail. So my heart breaks for Marius. Yeah, here's a banner. I hope we can take a picture with that later and make sure they know they're supported. My heart breaks for the children in that family in Pennsylvania who are under a gag order for the rest of their lives by Range Resources. They're never, ever allowed to talk about fracking or to talk about how it hurt their families. There's a man in Texas that's under a gag order for the rest of his life and can never talk about his struggle against the Keystone Pipeline. That's how far these industries have come. That's how serious it is. My heart breaks for the people in West Virginia, the 300,000 people that just had their water contaminated in West Virginia and are now just science experiments of what's going to happen to them. They can't bathe themselves or their kids in this water. And living in DFW, so close to where a new tar sands pipeline will be turning on next month, running through our water supply, surrounded by fracking, I can't help but wonder, not if, but when we're next. When are we next? We can't drink our own water. So that's really all I have to say. I would like to end by, I just read this autobiography of Assata Shakur, and it's really beautiful, and I really recommend it to folks. And so something that I've been reflecting on is this little verse that's in there that she wrote. So if you would be so kind, I would like to say it, and maybe we can like chant it, or just kind of say it a couple of times. I think it could be powerful. It's our duty to fight. It's our duty to win. We must love and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. One more time. Yeah. It's our duty to fight. It's our duty to win.
It's our duty to win.
We must love and support each other.
We must love and support each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Thank you.
Give it up again for Cindy Spoon. So next, we have Meg Hargis, the lovely Meg Hargis, who works with Queer Bomb. And it's important to remember that all of these issues are interconnected and that none of our struggles are disconnected.
Awesome, thanks, John. Yeah, I work with Queer Bomb Dallas, in Dallas, as one might imagine. And it's a group of radical queer people who's working to address queer oppression from a radical viewpoint as opposed to the liberal one that we've been handed. When we talk about like queer people and climate change, I think queer people are like uniquely positioned to look at this kind of issue because we've never had the luxury of thinking that somebody in power is going to save us when we're in trouble. Because when queer people were on the brink of extinction in the United States, the government stepped back and watched and waited a few years to see if they could just let the problem die out on its own. And luckily that didn't happen. But now that the entire world is on the brink of destruction, we know for a fact that nobody in the White House, nobody in Congress, no governor, no city representative, none of these people can do anything without people getting involved and taking power for themselves and saying that we will not allow this to happen. And the fact that we are having to deal with this sort of climate catastrophe comes from the fact that we live in a society where we have a minority of people making decisions that affect the entire planet. That's how you get oppressive systems to begin with, because you have people who are able to make decisions about queer people. You have people who are able to make decisions about who gets deported and who doesn't. doesn't. You have people who are able to make decisions that say, I will profit from building this pipeline. I'm going to take out all of the people's water in this entire country, but I'm going to make a buck off of it. And since I'm in power, I get to make that decision. And we cannot expect to live in a world without oppression until we smash the entire system that gives power to a minority of people at the expense of everyone else. And just like to name that system explicitly, the system we're living under is capitalism, and we have to say we will not accept capitalist solutions to the climate change, okay? So recycling is not going to stop climate change. Making a few regulations to fracking, as Wendy Davis did, that only affect what color the fracking fluid is not going to stop climate change. Democrats aren't going to stop climate change. Republicans aren't going to stop climate change. A united movement of people is the only thing that can save us all from dying. And I think that that's a struggle worth fighting in. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Meg. Give it up again for Meg Hargis. So next up we have Tom Madden. He works with Veterans for Peace, which has been really active here in North Texas.
Thank you, sir. My name's Tom, and I'm with North Texas chapter of Veterans for Peace, and we're here today for a couple of reasons. Number one, the theme yesterday was to change everything. We need everybody. So our organization is with you in making those changes. The other thing is that our goals as an organization for 2014 is very simply to abolish war on the planet and on the poor, and it's a little tundra on war on the planet. It means war on the planet and war on the planet. Just to give you, that may not know a little bit about us, just three quick things. Veterans for Peace has been around for 29 years, since 1985. We have 120 chapters around the United States. We have a seat, a permanent seat on the United Nations, classified as a non-governmental organization, and when we get involved, we work at that level as well. And we were the first veterans organization to be invited to belong to the International Peace Bureau in Geneva, Switzerland. So what I'm trying to say is when we get involved, we get serious, and we try and get things done. The third reason we're here, and someone quoted Naomi Klein's new book, is the concept that to change to change the climate, we need to change everything. What we would like to suggest is one of the things that we change is our acceptance of the status quo. And our solution that we'd like to share with you today, one thing that could help is the fact that the largest single organization on the planet Earth that uses fossil fuel is the U.S. military. Not only that, over half of the fuel that the U.S. military uses is used overseas, beyond the defending of our borders. And to put that in perspective, if the U.S. military was a country, it would rank 36th in consumption of fossil fuels. We can do something about that. Now, some people say, but it's the U.S. military. Pat the guy on the head, send them home. There's nothing that we need them to do that. Following along with we need to challenge things in business, people use the expression a reasonable man test. So let's look at how much we spend on our military and ask what kind of reasonable man test that might bring about. Number one, in the entire world, the United States spends 40 cents out of every dollar spent on military and war. 40 cents out of every dollar. Think about it. One country with less than 5% of the population spends 40% on military and war. I think for our reasonable man test, we might make a little check and say we need to look into that. To put that in a different perspective is we spend, when you send in your federal tax dollars, 50 cents on the dollar of that can go to the discretionary budget goes to our military. 50 cents out of every dollar that can be spent discretionally goes to the military. It doesn't go to education, doesn't go to looking at renewable energy, it doesn't go looking for health care, ways to solve health care, it goes to the military. So what we would suggest that if we've got the largest user of fossil fuel in the world and 50% of that is spent overseas, let's do two things. Let's suggest strongly as a group that we come home. Bring the troops home, come home, let's mind our own business. Yes, we need to defend ourselves, but are we really defending ourselves? And then let's demand, not propaganda, not being preached to, why do we need the military? Let's ask for a justification. Let's say historically, what has it done for us? What has it proved to us? Why we need this? And use that money for something else that's available. So that's why we're here. That's one real quick suggestion, and we're with you. We're all in this together. Putting the veterans of peace aside for a moment, I'd just like to share one thing, and it's not an original thought. I read it. I wish I could remember the author, but I believe it. There is no such thing as save the planet. All that we are talking about is saving ourselves and future generations. The planet will go on, with or without us. It will change, it will adapt, it will modify to whatever we do to it. When we make it uninhabitable for human beings, or we make it a lifestyle to inhabit it that none of us want, the planet will continue on. So as we all face the uphill battle that we have, remember, we're not doing it to save the planet. We're doing it to save ourselves. Thank you. We're also having a press release at 12:30 after the 10 o'clock one at the 12 o'clock at the federal court building. Yeah. What's the address? 1100 Commerce. We'll be having a press release there. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, as some of you might know, Obama just ordered more drone strikes in the Middle East again. And it's also important to remember that the military is one of the worst perpetuators of climate change.
And the right to authorization to climate adaptation.
Exactly. So, and it's important also to remember that this is the same system of fools that we're fighting here. So if y'all can indulge me in a chant here. Stop the war, stop the frack, get the climate back on track. Stop the war, stop the frack, get the climate back on track. Stop the war, stop the frack, get the climate back on track. Get the climate back on track. Thanks. Okay, so next up we have Kels Fryman with the International Socialist Organization. Give it up for Kels.
So it's been clear for quite some time that we are not the problem. People watering their lawns is not going to solve climate change. Clearly, when 1%, the richest 1% of the globe, contribute 9 times more greenhouse emissions than the bottom half of the globe, it's clear that we're not the problem. When they control the water that you drink, they make you fight for clean water, they make you struggle for basic necessities, it's pretty clear that we aren't the problem. So what do we do when it's clear that we're not the problem, that basic lifestyle changes are not going to fix it? What do? We have an actual climate justice movement that requires that we talk about things that haven't been talked about intersectionally for quite some time. We need a climate justice movement that talks about honoring indigenous treaties. We need climate justice movement that talks about economic justice and what it means for 1% to own so much of what we need. We need a movement that discusses deportation and how immigrants are not the problem here. When capital can move but people can't, that's a problem. We need a movement that discusses water rights and what that means for people of color and why our communities are targeted while their communities get to be rich and live in mansions and have 10 swimming pools while we struggle to have clean water. We need to talk about what it means when they pollute the air that we breathe and then move out of the places that they've polluted. We need to talk about what it means to actually physically own something and what it means that we don't have control over that. What it means when they tell us our food is cruelty-free, but they force immigrants to work in fields under oppressive conditions and then sell it to us as change. We need to talk about what it means when they have genetically modified soybeans so mass-produced that they're burning down rainforest in order to be ethical. We need to talk about what all these things mean in terms of climate justice. We need to talk about what racism means in climate justice. We need to interlink how police brutality, the same brutality that they use against people who lock down the pipelines, they then go out and shoot unarmed black and brown men in the streets. We need to talk about why climate justice is the same struggle as Ferguson. We need to talk about what we're doing. And when we don't talk about that, we resign ourselves to a movement that very few people can participate in. We need to talk about how able-bodied people and disabled people are allowed to come into the same movement and give what they need to be given. We need to talk about ableism. We need to talk about women's oppression. We need to talk about how the language they use for drilling is similar to the way they use women as their idea and what it means when nature is feminized. We need to talk about all these things in order for our movements to be successful. We know we need a mass movement. We've been trying for a mass movement. There are over 10,000 people in New York right now that agree that we need a mass movement. That is not the problem. What we need is a movement that talks about what it is and not what it's not. We don't need a movement backed by Wall Street that gives us a little bit of money to fight their competitors. We don't need a movement that says don't have coal, but it's okay to frack your city. We need a movement that says, you know what, fuck Wall Street, fuck deportations, fuck using migrant labor to destroy their bodies, fuck these systems that perpetuate misogyny, ableism, racism. We don't need those systems anymore, and it's clear to most of us that that's the problem. So don't just talk about it and have a one-and-done deal. Don't just talk about, well, like fracking affects land rights. Well, land rights also affect Native people. They affect people who don't have land to own anymore because it's been taken from them. Those are the things we need for an active climate justice movement to work, and I think we're going very close to this. So I'm going to let y'all go. You don't need to hear me preach anymore. Let's show them how we do it.
Give it up again for Kels. All right, so here in just a minute, we're going to go and we're going to march over to Quicksilver Resources. Quicksilver fracks all up and down North Texas. They don't have any safety regulations. They don't care about you or I. They care about the dollar. That's all they care about. So we're going to march right over there. They're right in that building right over there.